Good to go? All right. Welcome, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 39 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We have a great show lined up for you all today. We're looking forward to hearing what our guests have to say. First off, let me go ahead and introduce everybody that's in the building. First of all, shout out to Ramsey in the back, always handling the ones and twos, so we appreciate Ramsey always doing his thing. Next to me, to the right of me, is my sister, Sadat Abbott. She is here in the building, ready to share her wonderful knowledge on the topics. Of course, you got myself, Omar T. To the left of me, you got my other sister, Ivan Thabit, in the building as well. And then to the left of her, you got the MSU grad, old school friend of ours, Tia's in the building from WDET Detroit. And also from WDET Detroit, a huge community activist member. I've known her through community work that she does. So we have Nargis in the building as well. So clap it up from her. Like I said, also
an old family friend.
Old family friend. Like I said, she also is with WDET Detroit. So today, our topic is about women in media. We got two women who are doing extraordinary work in the media field. So we kind of wanted to hear their thoughts of how things are going for them. Sorry about that. My daughters were, in here watching some YouTube. But with that said, we're looking forward to a great show today. Before we continue on with the show, first of all, be sure to subscribe to all of our pages. You have YouTube, Oz Media, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok under Oz Media. You can listen to the show later on Apple and Spotify podcasts under Oz Media. If you want to call in, you have any questions for anyone that's on the panel, whatever topic we're discussing, the number is 313-306-1750. Again, 313-306-1750. Got to give a shout out to our sponsors. You have Hanley International Academy, Qahwa House, BC Adhesives, The Balkan House, and Juice Box in Hamtramck. Nargis, all the times you've been in Hamtramck, I'm sure you've tried Balkan House restaurant before. So got to give a shout out to Balkan House. What are your thoughts on Balkan House, by the way?
I love it.
You love it? Yeah, I do too. Great people too. Tia, have you ever tried Balkan House before yet?
I have not.
You have to try it. You have to try it. Yeah, definitely got to get you on with that. So, Ramsey, go ahead and give a shout out to the Balkan House restaurant, and then we'll get the show on the road. The Balkan House restaurant. The Balkan House restaurant is famous for their doner kebab sandwich. But did you know that the Balkan House now serves breakfast? Did you also know that all their food is 100% halal? The Balkan House now also have 2 food trucks, so you can book your next party or event with the Balkan House on wheels. Their Hamtramck location is 3028 Kniff Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. Their Ferndale location is 314 West 9 Mile Road, Ferndale, Michigan. Again, you can book their food trucks for your next party or event. So if you're looking for a nice place to eat with friendly service and great prices, look no further than the Balkan House restaurants. All right, so like I said, today we have Tia and Nargis from WDET Detroit to talk about women in media and all the great work that they're doing. So let's go ahead. And first of all, before we even introduce yourselves, I have to ask this question. It's the thing that I've been doing this last month or so with our guests, and that is asking them how are their hearts doing, all right? So just checking in with you and just seeing how you are and how you're feeling and maybe things that are going on in the world and your personal life. So Tia, starting off with you, how's your heart? How's everything going on with you?
First thing I thought of when you asked that question is everything that's happening in the world. Fires burning, floods, and different things. The weather is really impacting us really heavily. So my heart is with the people who are interfering with the weather right now, because it's very intense for a lot of people, and it could come for us soon as well. So my heart's just really heavy in thinking about what's happening to our environment.
Great one. Great. How about you, Nargis?
I think I'm, really in a space of looking for peace, if that makes sense. So this year I have a big goal of going to Umrah, and I feel like it's something that I've been not putting off per se, but like this year I'm being very, very intentional about it. So I feel like every spare penny, we have like a little savings box, even though it's not like we don't have the money to go, but it's like that money, every spare change is going intentionally into the savings for Umrah. So that's kind of where my mind is right now.
That's awesome.
May Allah make that easy for you.
I mean.
So, Nargis, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? What is it that you do at WDET Detroit? Maybe any other extracurricular activities that you may take part in, and anything else?
So I'm a reporter at WDET. before, way back in the day, I was an intern. So during undergrad, I interned there. I studied print journalism. So for people who might be a little bit familiar with journalism, is usually you're either writing or you're on the radio and TV. So when I was younger, I was mortified by the idea of being on radio or TV. So, but here we are, right?
Yeah.
But then many years later, I did a fellowship. It was called it was a food writing fellowship. It was with the Feed in Two Worlds and WDET, and they took print journalists and taught them how to do radio. So it was a whole new ball game. And I feel like I fell in love with radio at that time. And something I think that a lot of people might resonate with is like sometimes you want to help people or be a voice for people, but literally then you get to put people's voice on radio. There's something about that really sat with me, and it was like, this is like as good as it's gonna get, and you can literally have people listen to diverse voices on the radio through the work, and I feel like there's something really humbling about that. And then later I got hired at WDET during the pandemic with something called the Detroit Documenters, which is a program where we train regular people to go to city council meetings and write notes. And because in Detroit, for example, there are so many meetings at random times. Some of them are like 6-7 hours long, and you don't have journalists always in the room to document those notes. So they supplement the work that reporters do in the city by taking very detailed notes, and then we can go back and then write stories based on some of these things. So they support our work. Now it is a part of Outlier Media, and it's become a part of a media collaboration. So Detroit Documenters, there's like 10 or so organizations or media organizations that are tapped into that space. Oh. And then specifically at WDT, I do a lot of stories about minority coverage. I had a project called Communities of Hope, which was focusing on minority communities and how they found ways to cope during the pandemic. But if like for people like us, like we always see negative stories of people like us. 100%. So I thought about it like one more layer, and I said, how can I make this positive? Even though it's about the pandemic and it's about struggle, how do our people hold on to hope? Because they literally do. They always find a way to get through things. So it ended up being a series about business entrepreneurship, and many of the stories were about women entrepreneurship. So that's a lot of the focus of the kind of work that I do.
Award-winning series, by the way.
Give her a round of applause, Ramsey. Definitely. I definitely read her work too, and she does an awesome job. And we appreciate all that you do for the community, because honestly, you are a voice for the voiceless. So we appreciate you. And Tia, I know you be doing big things over there too. So tell us a little.
I've been around so many different places with journalism. Just starting out, interning, doing sports internships, just thinking I was going to be the next, like Jamil Hill, like the next sports reporter lady, and like that did not happen.
Yeah.
So I got into traffic reporting, and I became a traffic reporter for WWJ 950. I did that for about 5 years. Mm-hmm. And then 3 years into that, I was asked to do WDT. I was also an intern, just like Nargis. So we kind of all come from the same pool of unpaid internships turned into paid jobs, turned into something a little bit bigger, bigger roles as time goes on. So I started out part-time doing anchoring and weekend edition with WDET while also doing traffic reporting with WWJ. And then in 2020, what year is it? So in 2022 of May, I received a full-time job with WDET. So that was my first full-time paid job in journalism. Super excited about that. And I'm on an arts and culture program now. So I get to talk about all things arts, culture, different things that are happening in different communities. And the thing I like the most about this particular position is I get to talk about all things. Whether it's from my community, whether it's from communities that are impacted in different ways, I get to talk about every person and bring them on and have their voice shared on the show. And it's a primetime show on our network, so I get to do something that a lot of people aren't doing right now. And it's a very special place and position, and I really do take it, I don't take it lightly. So everything that I do at WDET right now is to make sure, just like Nargis said, giving voice to people who are not being seen or heard at all. And that's what I do.
And I could attest to that. I mean, Tia reached out, got me on one of her the Cultural Shift shows, I believe.
Yeah, Cultural Shift.
So we was there, and it was a great experience, and I appreciate you for that too. A lot of people told me that they loved it and they enjoyed listening to it. So
and that connection, Nargis, because she's like, "Have you ever had Omar on the show?" And I was like, "You know what? I have not, and I know him personally. So let's do this." And it was just like that.
Yep, appreciate you, Nargis, as well. Thank you so much. And go ahead and give her a round of applause as well, Tia. She's doing great work. Like, I don't think people understand the importance of the work that they're doing. That's why I'm happy that we can have a show today about this. Because again, like, you guys are bringing to the forefront conversations that people probably don't even know about. you know, especially like, you know, maybe in Michigan, we're somewhat diverse in this state, especially, you know, lower end of Michigan, the east side of Michigan. So we kind of know, but it's the world in terms of like people really don't know what's going on, and you guys are kind of bringing those stories to the forefront. So definitely appreciate that.
And like Nargis was saying, usually we're put out there as like negative or
Yeah.
Just the storyline isn't always the most positive. So being able to bring those stories to the forefront, to the community, to and a bigger pool of people as well. So it's appreciated.
For sure, for sure. So you talk about your roles. How is it like being a woman in the media field? First of all, you guys, for people out there, because I don't think I have a question about this. So maybe we could start off with, in terms of like maybe people who are interested in the career, would you guys recommend it, first of all? And then maybe you guys can jump into being a woman in the media field. If you know what, we'll stick to the woman. We'll stick to the woman one then. I just gave each other that look, all right? That's that look. I know that look. All right, so let's stick with the woman, being a woman in the media. We go back and start off with you.
Let's just say there were a lot of women who came before us who walked so we could run, because there are a lot of things that I know I do today that women could not do even 10 years ago, even 15, 5 years ago. There are things that just were not happening. And today I get to do a lot of things. I have a voice. I have a seat at tables that I didn't have seats at before. So now I see the progression. I see a movement. I see, especially with Gen Z, shout out to Gen Z, because they're coming into the workspace and changing it and making it look like their own. And if they don't like it, they leave. And that's one thing that I'm really learning from, and I'm getting empowered from, is from Gen Z and what they're doing. So I'm pushing forward as a woman in media today because I'm watching all of the people ahead of me as well as coming up behind me push me forward. So I'm standing with them right now.
Nice. How about you, Nargis?
I think that for someone like me, the first question that I had to answer, or like to kind of go through on my own, is one, I knew I really wanted to do this, but I knew that there weren't women like me in the field that I'm in, right? So I had to come to terms with people will be uncomfortable with me in the room, or me holding the mic, or me asking the questions. But I also have this opportunity, this unique opportunity, to still stand my ground and do this job, and then open that pathway for other people. So I take that, I look at that as almost like a positive challenge and an opportunity to open that space for other people. And I had one really funny experience was like, there was this well-known Muslim guy that I interviewed. He was an older gentleman, like a pioneer of our community. And I was asking him about, just like how has the community changed over the years in a couple of decades. And then the first thing he asked me, he said, they have a hijabi girl on the radio.
Wow.
And he didn't mean it as an insult. He meant it like, what were they thinking? Like, does this happen? And I said, Uncle, they can't see me, right? Because I'm on the radio. So most of the time people hear me, they don't see me first.
Yeah.
So I have that opportunity.
And you don't really have an accent, so you can't really tell.
So sometimes it works to my advantage that people are not judging me by my appearance right away. Other times it's like letting people know, like, just because I'm a hijabi woman, just because I'm Muslim doesn't mean I can't hold truth to power, and that I can't be in these spaces to bear witness to the history that's happening in front of our eyes, that I can't bear witness the things that are happening to our communities, and that I can't step forward in a positive way. Like, why do I have to, if people have been negatively writing about all these things about our communities, how do I break that cycle? I break that by trying to find positive stories, trying to be there when it's uncomfortable, when it's difficult. I've been in experiences where, there's all men in the room. They're Muslim men even, but I'm not welcome in that space either, right? So then I had to then work twice as hard to kind of prove myself to my own community, and then also the general mainstream community, and say, I know that you're uncomfortable with me being here, but I'm trying to do this for the right reasons. And I understand that people have a mistrust of media in the past because people have gotten it really wrong in the past. But if you don't give people a chance like me, an opportunity to get it right, then it's always going to be like that.
Right.
And so then putting myself in those spaces and then slowly building those connections. And I think something like that I used to deal with in the past more is that you have to be taken seriously in the mainstream for your own community to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And so you kind of carry that burden with you for a while, but then once you're kind of, you're kind of welcome in the mainstream space eventually or finally, then the community follows.
Which I feel like it should be the opposite, by the way.
Right. It should be the opposite, but it's hard because your community doesn't trust you right away, you know? And especially I think as a woman, it's like you have a lot more factors to people trusting you easily. They're like, oh, what's that girl up to? And I've had situations where I've even had to take my kid with me just to like show that I'm a mature older woman. Like I'm not like a little dinky child, you know? Like people don't take me seriously for being a woman and then being a Bengali woman and then, you know, all the other things that come with it. But then like really just staying true to what I'm trying to do and focus on that and not take it personally when people don't understand who I am.
Some great points, honestly. Definitely, I can almost, you know, some of it could relate for sure. Just in general, just kind of just being out there and, you know, people see you and they judge you like, okay, who's this guy or who's this person? And you kind of have to earn that respect. And eventually, you know, you got to get there. I was wondering, like, what is your viewpoint of like women in media or when you see women in media? Especially like people of color too as well, women of color.
Kind of like piggybacking of what she said, I feel like ever since I've been on social media with the podcast and whatnot, I feel like I'm not only representing, like, for instance, myself and my family, and when I wear the hijab, I'm presenting like Islam and whatnot. I'm also presenting this podcast because, you know, people are viewing, people are seeing, and I kind of have to like make sure, like, you know, what we're bringing to the table is great, and it's not just on camera; it's off camera as well. So yeah, it's been interesting, but most of the feedback I've kind of gotten was always positive. So I was thinking maybe because I'm Gen Z and we don't care about what other people think, and you know, like there's pressure everywhere, but I don't allow anyone to bring that negativity to me. So yeah, I mean, I know it's hard, and of course, like just how I'm dressed and everything, I have to make sure, and what I'm saying, I have to prepare myself in a sense before that. But I also feel like that I am comfortable to be myself, and I'm very thankful for that.
You know, basically what she's saying, Zach, is she's not on TikTok doing rap videos and it's reading every lyric style. Zach is my little brother who's on the Movement podcast, and I scroll through TikTok, all of a sudden I see a rap video with him wearing a chain and saying every single lyric.
A fake chain. And then, like, you know what's funny is that, like, he asked us the other day, he was like, why don't you guys like my TikToks? I was like, because I like what I like. Like, I'm not going to like it because I don't like it. I'm not going to like it because you're my brother.
Sorry.
You know, I try to have those conversations with them, and I also want to balance him still being young.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in high school, so it's like I don't want to take away stuff, but it's like, you know, it comes with it. It comes with the whole situation. But I'm happy to hear that, you know, that's the mindset that she has for sure. Because that's the mindset you need to have when you're in media, right? Like there's you really can't do anything that comes to your mind in a way, right? You represent, you know, your company, you represent yourself, you represent your brand. You know, you maybe want to talk about that.
Yeah,
like,
think about that often. I step outside and I'm, you know, doing things where maybe, you know, I've learned a lot of patience since having this career, and like especially now where, you know, Nargis likes to always joke and say like I'm a celebrity, but like now where my voice is recognized sometimes when I'm out now a little bit more, and like people start to notice me a little bit more. So now I'm a little bit more aware of where I am, who's around me, what I'm looking for, and it makes you a little nervous. I'm not gonna hold you up, and I try not to even talk too much because it's like I don't want anybody to recognize my voice just yet, but just the pressures of making sure that you're maintaining a, you know, put together presentable person when you're out in the public, because people know who you are and what you represent. And for me, especially like Nargis is saying, for the community, like I'm just like Nargis, I'm like one of the only black women on air at the station. We are one of the only people of color on air, the women of color on air, truly.
That's beautiful.
So for us, it's truly important that we're always representing who we are, but also representing our culture and our people. And then if that is sometimes disturbing to folks, oh well, it does get a little disturbing to folks. We were talking about like people talking and are commenting, and I've been getting a few comments lately, you know, why is this so this, or why is this so that, or why are you always talking about black this? And it's just like,
or like, oh, your voice is different on the podcast versus, you know what I mean? You get those comments, but it's just like, whatever
it is. So yeah, I've gotten over all those little things, but just now, just being in public and people kind of noticing or recognizing my voice is like, oh.
Yeah.
She's definitely a celebrity. Like when people walk into her station, they verbally gasp, like, "Oh my God, it's Tia!"
And I'm just
and I'm like, "Oh."
It's like, how? And then when I think about Nargis, I'm like, this is an award-winning Nargis right here with the series, like Communities of Hope, which I listened to every single one in the pandemic. I listened like all the time. It was my favorite series to listen to. It really gave me hope during the pandemic.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting because, 10 years ago, we couldn't do stories like these.
No.
Yeah, that's awesome. Go ahead and give them a round of applause. Shout out to WDET Detroit too. Seriously, right? They're the ones that are like allowing this to happen on their platform. So that's also awesome. Public radio too. So they definitely have made some moves. So you kind of talk about everything, but I kind of want to pinpoint maybe what's the toughest or the hardest part about being a woman in the media. I mean, is it something where you kind of mentioned of just kind of like gaining that trust and from the people in the community? Like, what do you feel like is the toughest or the hardest part?
I think the toughest thing is you have to really know who you are and who you are not. And you have to be very comfortable with going in with the mindset of these are the stories that I want to tell, and I'm going to figure out how to do that without the approval of everyone in the room or the top person in the room. And our boss is amazing, so shout out to him. But we do not always have people like that in the room that understand your vision and understand where are you going with this story and why is it important for you to tell. But usually, it's a space where a lot of times people are competitive with each other. That is the nature of the job. And so that's something that when I was younger, I used to worry about more, like competitive nature and that everyone's competing against each other. I think that today in 2023, there's still obviously competition, but if you are really, if you create a niche, like a niche way of storytelling or a thing that you like to tell, and you really work hard in that, you can make a name for yourself based on the work that you do without having to compete with other people. And something that changed over the years is that before, this is something that really bothered me when I was younger, is that we were not allowed to talk about minority communities because we were minorities. It was considered biased to cover stories of your own people or your own religious background, or you grew up in that town because you know too much. Today we value lived experience. Yep. We go to journalists and say, what do you know about that town because you grew up there? How can you cover this story better? I think that really happened because of the George Floyd movement. I honestly think that's what it was. Because all of a sudden, instead of hiring one person for the diversity hire, they're like,
make sure just that get the one person in.
Now we're like, you know what? This person is an Asian American. Maybe that person can cover the Stop Asian Hate, movement better. This person is Bangladeshi American. Maybe that person can cover why there's a consulate mobile service coming to town and there's thousands of people being serviced. Maybe there is a African-American festival happening, maybe an African-American
Which I did cover, by the way, the African World Festival, because that's the background that you're supposed to be. That's it. You live those experiences.
Cultural competency.
Yeah, proper representation for sure.
Yep.
Personally, I wouldn't want somebody telling a segment about my culture that's not a part of my culture,
Yeah.
and having to do the background, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that
it drives me crazy. Yeah. It drives me crazy. So that's why I'm always asking questions. I'm very grateful that Nargis answers all of the questions that I send her because it's just like, I don't know. So I'm not as informed. So just let me know if I'm wrong, if I'm right, let me know. So that way I'm not, completely disrespecting your culture on air. So thank you. And Nargis is, like I said, she's been amazing with everything happening in the Bangladeshi community in Hamtramck right now. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank
you for listening and reading my stories.
I always send great stuff. So I always we bounce ideas. So that's when you talk about the competition thing. Especially here, she sends me stories, I send her stories. We'll do the follow-ups with each other.
We do this thing called the Detroit Evening Report, which is this news podcast. So it is the baby of our boss, Jerome Vaughn, who is also African American, and his vision is to create a radio space that looks like the people of Detroit.
I love that.
So 80% plus is African American. So our radio station, our public spaces should reflect that. The way we are covering the news should be covered by people of color. And so he basically said, okay, well, let's take all the people of color, which is roughly 5 of us.
It's literally like 5 of us.
And we created a podcast that is for the people. It's news that people send us tips on neighborhood things, events that are happening. People need diapers for their kids, like really basic things and also very nuanced things. So we talk about, festivals. We talk about where people can get resources, where they can apply for scholarships, things that you might not always hear on the mainstream news because it's not for everyone. But it's catered to the people that we know are listening to the radio that need the news that we say. So like, for example, if you're listening to the news and you don't hear a story about yourself or your community, are you going to keep listening?
No.
Exactly.
It's not relevant.
It's not relevant. So we're trying to get a little bit more intimate, go into communities, really sit down with people. We've had a couple of engagement events. We've had one in Dearborn, one in Hamtramck so far, where we literally sit and we like pull the women from the community. Because one thing, you know what I'm talking about, you're not going to always be able to go in a space where women are not comfortable sitting with the opposite gender and to have conversations that are just really like free flowing in what they need. So if I sit down and say, what do you need? And there's a room full of men, you're not going to necessarily tell me, what do you need from us? Because public radio works in that way that we're supposed to be representing what people want to hear on air. But if we're not talking to everyone in the community in the first place, then are we reflecting those voices? We are not. So we've been trying to go and sit with people and say, what are the issues that you see that are in your community? And what are we getting right and what are we getting wrong? So we can try to fill those gaps as we go along.
I love it. How about you, Tia? What's been the toughest or the hardest part for you? Just been working in the media. Top of your head, what can you think of?
Just off the top of my head, I would just think it would just be the constant pace of the work, just constantly on. Sometimes you're working. Sometimes it's 5 days a week. Sometimes it's 7. It just depends on what you got going on for the day. You talked about earlier, like what do your schedules look like, and it just depends on the day. Like, today I got out a little early because of the podcast today, so I got out at like 3:30ish, but I would have stayed until like 5 or 5:30 to finish the rest of my work up. And then, like, for example, Thursday, I'm going to be at the station at like 10:30, but I'm going to be doing stuff until like 10 that night. So it just depends on what the day is.
And like
Stories, work, engagement events. We have like a comedy show coming up. We have a few other things coming up, so like we'll work those as well. And make appearances as well. So it's like the scheduling of being a journalist, it's often very difficult. That's why I always say to you, I don't know how you do it as a mom.
Yeah, I think that people jokingly are usually telling me that I'm working too much. I think it's just more about being efficient because, as a mom, you only have pockets of time to get things done between things.
Yes.
So while you're at work, but then if you have anything left over, you have to hustle through it, right? And so I think it's more about that than working so much. I just feel like, and I feel like growing up, I always felt like I had to see the product of something that I was working on. So I always feel like I have to do more or work harder or put out more output to like prove something to someone.
I was going to ask you about pressures because the pressures of just like the society, but just the pressures of being on all the time and like being good because we are women of color. So it's like we mess up once, it feels like the whole world is ending.
Yeah.
But I'm getting over that as well. That's one of the hardest things too, just being okay with mistakes and being okay with not being perfect all the time because we're not all perfect. So just trying to deal with that, which has also been a very difficult thing to do.
Well, look, these ladies right here you could tell they're professionals. They know what they're talking about. I hope that you're enjoying this.
She wanted to make a
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm giggling here because he's looking at me and I'm like,
looking straight at you and it's like,
I thought you were looking at Sada. What you got to say, Ivan?
do you still want to say it?
I'm gonna need a minute.
You don't need a minute? All right. So we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to our second sponsor today, which is we're going to go ahead and give a shout out to Hanley International Academy, the school that Ramsey got promoted from. So shout out to Hanley International Academy. And then we will let Ivy to say what she has to say and move on with the show as well with the questions. Go ahead, Ramsey. Hanley International Academy. Hanley is a school that treats every student and staff like their own family. It's even in their vision statement. Educating your child like our own. Did you also know that Hanley offers a virtual academy? So if you're looking for your kid to sign up for an online school, look no further than Hanley's virtual academy. But if you're looking for face-to-face, Hanley International Academy is located on 2400 Denton Street, Hamtramck, Michigan. The athletics there are great. The academics there are great. Shout out to the whole staff for being great teachers and educators for our leaders of tomorrow. Yeah, so I just got done yelling at me, everybody. I just want to let y'all know.
No, it's just, me and Sada, we don't have the journalism background. So even for us being on this podcast, I feel like a lot of the times people don't take us seriously. And I would not feel comfortable starting my own podcast because I am, a female. And then on top of that, I'm Yemeni. And we also grew up in the same community. So you kind of understand, with that situation. But it took my Gen Z sister, literally, and, my brother to be on here for me to, kind of feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to this one TikTok, and this girl was like, the people that are our age, we're kind of confused, because our older generation that we looked up to, still use the white pages and weren't as tech savvy, right? And we're kind of in that middle area where we're like, okay, we know what we're doing. But then this whole new generation that knows more than us in a way, you know what I'm saying, that are building careers without even college. We grew up, we have to go to school and you have to get a degree. And it's just we're in that limbo of and then you have to buy a house, and houses now are way more than houses back in the day were, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just feel like it's the middle ground.
You just said, that's so funny. I was looking at on Zillow not too long ago because I'm looking for, to possibly buy a home. And I can't afford that. It's crazy. So I don't know what that whole situation is, but just the idea of us, having this order that we have to do things in, and then it all just kind of getting tossed in the air, especially with the pandemic that really just tossed it all up in the air for a lot of us, where it's we got the college degree, or you did this, you did that, but it's not what it was supposed to be. It's not what it's meant to be, or it's not working out. So for a lot of us, for me, I am kind of in a limbo space where I'm just I don't know, I don't really feel like an adult, but I'm not a kid, but I'm not.
Are we grown up now? Are we grown up? 'Cause I feel grown up.
We're adulting.
Are we adulting? I don't know what's happening.
It's a weird situation because when I was younger and I saw a 30-year-old and I'm like, oh, 30, this person.
They have their house, they have their car, they have their kids, they have their, everything is all put together. Yeah. I always think, go ahead, sorry.
No, this new generation that's coming up, they're just risk takers and they just go with the flow and they're just have no worries, and I'm just I admire it,
I wish I had that. I do, because I'm learning from my nieces and nephews and the people around me, but it's you all are fearless, and it's we still got a little bit of that fear from the older generation still kind of lingering in our brains, but I feel like we're shaking it out. I feel like we're shaking it off. Yeah.
Hey, so she just said fearless and then said shake it off.
Oh no,
Taylor references. I love you. All right.
Were you about to say something though about?
I was just gonna say about just how we say we could plan, but I used to think when I'm turning 26 in a couple of weeks, I would have it all right now, but I think it's as cliche as they say, but it's about the destination.
Well, listen, you have a nice brown shirt.
No, it's about the journey, not the destination. Yeah.
There we go.
You got a nice brown shirt with the matching scarf, so you almost have it all, Sada. So you guys kind of touched on being a minority woman in the media, but can you guys maybe just talk about it a little bit more, compared to? I don't know the demographics in WDET or just in general, just comparing it to what you guys kind of see being a minority woman compared to just being a normal, not a woman of color, woman of color.
Really, it's a comparison to a white male.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the standard.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the standard is being compared to a white male. That's what is the equivalent or the opposite of the coin.
Yeah.
So we think that another thing that came to mind when Abir was talking about some of the expectations that our generations had, even as a Bangladeshi woman, my parents were you're getting married. It doesn't matter if you go to college. You have to start your family and do all that stuff. So it's kind of funny because I actually stepped away from journalism to after going through school, I took a break. I did something else so I could take care of my family, take care of my kids, and then come back into it. And I think that at that time I used to panic. I'm oh, my career is over before it even started. So when I really got back into journalism, I was very surprised that it even worked out. I was oh, okay. And I really think that, God gives us talents and he expects us to use those talents as a means to get closer to him or fulfill our purpose or however you want to say that. But I feel like that itch came back and I was like, I got to do something with just something that's just for me. Besides all the roles that I carry and all the things that I do for other people, as a sister, as a mom, as a daughter, it doesn't matter. Like, put that aside. What is Nargis without all those other things that are connected to other people? And then I used to ask myself, what is the contribution that I want to leave behind, my legacy that I want to leave behind? And like the only thing that would come to mind is writing. And I was like, I don't even have clips anymore. Like, no one even knows my name, because it's kind of like you need to have a little bit of a name for yourself, a byline. And as I mentioned, I was scared, mortified by the thought of being on TV or voice, anything like that. But when I got back into it, I was like, this is, I'm going to figure it out as I go along. But I've done everything I needed to do for everybody else. Yeah. So this is the time for me to figure out what is it that is just for me. And then people will adjust to that. And I want to be able to show my kids that, you don't only have to do stuff for other people. You have to do something for yourself. Mm-hmm. They are definitely some of my biggest supporters. And it's very funny because they'll tell you like it is, right? Like if you're terrible, they'll be like, what was that? Yep. But they also are like, okay, that's really cool that we have something that we can be proud of. And then, tell our friends like, oh, look what my mom's doing. Like, that's really cool. So it's nice to see that in them because, you want to be able to leave something behind for them too, but also something that's just for yourself. Mm-hmm. Something that I struggled with a lot was this concept of being selfish or versus like self-love, for example, right? So we've been trained to take care of everybody else first. And then I got to a point in my life where I felt like, what about me though? Like if I fall today, like if everything falls apart for me, who's going to pick me up? Nobody. So I had to, so I feel like writing was it's therapeutic for me. It's healing for me. When I get to write about someone who got help in some way or did something for themselves, I feel like that made me feel better too. Like something in me healed while I see someone else doing better for themselves. So it's like a reflection of that. So I think that's one reason that I really am drawn to writing and it's that limbo thing. Like you kind of grow up differently, and I feel like my lived experiences through even my personal life make me a better reporter because I have experiences that I can bring to the table. When I see a mom struggling with her kids, I know what that's like, what that means, so I can bring that into the writing as well.
I love that.
You can hear the passion in her voice as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure.
Like you have to do things for yourself.
Like, oh my God, Nargis.
Yeah. Well, Tia, it's your turn, Tia. So
I don't. Just me, just being from the city of Detroit and like being on air in Detroit has been probably the best thing about being on the radio right now, because a lot of people we talk about, they have to leave to go to their smaller markets to get their start, and they come back home, and it's like I didn't have to leave. I got to stay home and hone my craft here and just kind of go through the ranks that way, the traditional old way. And that's what I'm trying to figure out how to do it the Gen Z way next. But, you know.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know. So,
we know.
It's so true. But just for me personally, like the little lived experience for myself, like just being in Detroit, growing up in Detroit, but I grew up in the Warrendale community. So I grew up in a space that was very diverse, very culturally diverse. So my upbringing already informed me on how to be more of an open-minded, understanding, forgiving, compassionate person, because I've been in a space and place where there's so many different things that are happening at once, whether it's good or bad. The Warrendale community has, its ups and downs, but it's one of those communities that I cherish to my heart. My mom still lives in that community, and I'm still over there often. So it's one of those places that's helped informed my reporting very much. Detroit, as well as being near Dearborn and being near Dearborn Heights and Redford, and that little community, it just really helped a lot. And as well, my family, I have a huge family, so they also helped propel me through this career that is truly, like Nargis said, we're all based off of a white male, 40-year-old white male for all these industries. So just to be even standing next to us in a space where we're compared to white males, and then we're like, you're award-winning. You're winning awards over folks. So it's like, I haven't even had no. But just the idea that we have these spaces in these places, especially as women of color, especially as a Black woman in the city of Detroit, to just represent, it means more than I can put words to. Honestly, it's just really one of those things. Like I'm speaking to my community in a way that not a lot of people get to do. So,
and young, by the way, young that has, you know, their lives ahead of them and has a lot of time to even keep growing, and the voices can get even bigger and bigger. So definitely, I can't wait to see more work that you guys are definitely doing. We got Kushi Khan. I'll make sure I didn't say their first name wrong. Nargis found her voice and also a way to uplift the voices and stories of marginalized communities. So shout out to Kushi Khan. They wanted to comment that. We appreciate them for throwing that out there. So going back to this conversation, I know you kind of touched on it in terms of what do you enjoy the most. You kind of were talking about just working in the city that you grew up in. So, but that is my next question is like, what do you enjoy the most about working in media?
Well, now I get to do the arts and culture, so I get to bring on local bands and different people to come on the show and just talk about what's happening in communities that I had no idea were going on, just complete blind spots, and just my mind has been completely open and blown in the last year, just learning everything I've learned, and I'm so excited about what's to come next and who I'm going to talk to next and what's the next guest we're going to have musically on the show and how we're going to try to find a new way to engage the community with a concert or an event or something like that, because I want to do like a skating event, and I also want to do a karaoke event with the show. So it's like there are different things I want to do to get into the community. And that's what I love the most about my job and my position right now is I get to actually speak to the people out there who are doing things organizationally, maybe grassroots, maybe, you know, whatever it may be. I get to talk to anybody and just bring them on the air. And the best thing about that is I get to be the person who chooses who's going to be on air. Most of the time, I'm making sure I'm putting people of color on air.
And you don't know what you could be doing for that person, like showcasing their talent or whatever it is that they're doing. Like you could be opening doors for them as well. So that in itself is just like that that reward. You know what I'm saying? That intrinsic reward that you have in your heart.
And that's another thing too that's been really new for me is just having people like, you know, you're the first person to play my song on the radio, and it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I had that impact or have that power, that position now. So now that it's sinking in, Nargis always reminds me. She's just really putting it in my mind, like, don't forget, like, what's happening around you, what you're doing, how things are progressing in front of you, because you are doing things. And I said, you know, thank you, Nargis. You literally said it to me today, and I said, let me really think about this.
Yeah, you really do bring a lot to the table, and you don't realize the opportunities that you're creating for yourself and for people at the same time.
Yeah, so with you, Nargis, the same question would be, what do you enjoy the most about working in the media?
I think the funnest part, well, I don't know if you guys know, but I do a lot of food stories. So that is like the running joke in our news station. What food story are you working on next?
And are they bringing food?
I was going to say, do they bring you samples?
They do sometimes.
Once in a while. Most of the time, no. But that's, you know, that's the hope, right?
Yeah.
So people are always joking with me about that. And I always have to be like, I'm not a foodie. I mean, I am, but like, I'm not a food Instagram person. I mean, just write about the stories. So I still eat the food, I take the pictures, but you know, those it's kind of separate. So we just joke about that a lot. But you know, I feel like it's really fun to be able to find a new way for people to look at diverse communities with a very lighthearted approach. Because that's something that we learned in our fellowship when I did that at WDET, is that when you bring food literally to the table and you're having a conversation, you can bring up really difficult things in the process with a very easy, soft opening. So you might be introducing like, what is the, you know, what is this Yemeni dish, and like, where did it come from? And like, we're talking about coffee, and then now the region, now we're bringing up war. And then it's like, everybody's like, what just happened? You know? Now I'm aware, and now I can't unknow it. Now I cannot know it.
You got my whole life story out of this coffee right here.
Right, exactly. So I think that it's fun to be able to find new ways that, you know, you're kind of normalizing stories that people are not hearing, and then making them mainstream to the point where people, like, they hear a story and they're like, okay, I know what that is. And now I know where Yemen is on the map. Now I know where Bangladesh is on the map. Now I know that this is really important to these people, and it's not all the negative stuff that I've been reading beforehand. And now I have some other sort of context, or I can say, this is what Michigan communities are like, and you know, really localizing their neighbors and really picturing who are people in their communities. I think it's important to bring that conversation, like, hey, that might be what you think you know, but here are people that actually are from your community. Learn about them from their perspective, get to know them better. We did end up having an event for Communities of Hope, which was really fun. So we had it at Bobob Fair, which is an East African food space, and off of, what is that, Grand Boulevard?
Grand Boulevard, yeah.
And, you know, Mamba was so generous to let us use the space for our event, but we've had the different people that we interviewed, we had them bring samples.
Oh, nice.
And so we had Taste of Aden was there. She brought...
her food is great.
Yeah, I think she brought like sambusas or something. And then...
Yes.
She brought some bread. And then we had Bangladeshi food. We had some Ethiopian food. So people...
I've been wanting to try some Ethiopian.
Yeah, and it's like a lot of it is like similar to the cuisines that we might also be familiar with, and it's interesting to see all that come together in like one space, and people are not like, again, judging you right from the bat. They're like, oh, what is this food about? And like, tell us about the spices, and like, you know, then
Up conversation.
it brings up very nuanced conversations, and I think it's important to have nuanced conversations. And like, I've had experiences in the past where I'm like, this is a story, and people are like, no, it's not. What is that about? Nobody cares about that. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna write it anyways. And then when I go through that process, I ask myself, why is this something that everyone should know? Like, you know, in the past, for example, news used to be what people should know or ought to know or what's happening in the world. Now it's a lot more entertainment based. So it's like, why do people need to know about the war in Yemen or a conflict in Bangladesh or the Turkey-Syria earthquake? Like, why are we not talking about that on mainstream media when there's thousands of people who died? Why is that any different than talking about Ukraine? Like, things like that. It's so you have to kind of ask yourself, why are you the right person to tell that story, if you are? And if you're not, who can tell it better? Does it fit better on Culture Shift, where there's a certain kind of audience that might receive that information better? Does it fit better on Detroit Today, which is more news and nuance, and you can have those difficult, conflict-ridden questions and have people hash it out from two sides? So just kind of figuring out where it places. The other thing I wanted to say, a shout out to like the Muslim women community, because there are actually a lot of Muslim reporters now. We have people, representation at Detroit News, Detroit Free Press, Outlier Media. We have Michigan Radio, WDET. So it's, I don't know, I guess I don't want to say it's a coincidence that they're women. But like, mashallah, like that people, like the women, the journalists who happen to be Muslim are women, and they're doing award-winning work, and they're bringing nuanced conversations to the table. They're not necessarily reporting on Muslim communities per se. They're covering housing. They're covering, you know, what's happening at our jails, what's happening into undocumented populations, like different nuanced things. But, you know, when I open the newspaper or I look at a news story and I see the byline and I see like a story about Dearborn, it could be something very simple, like a small event happened, or something very nuanced about new policies or a funeral where there was thousands of people, but no one in mainstream media would have known about it if that particular reporter didn't report on that story. And brought in the importance behind why that person was a huge person to that community. So we need people like that to just really be on the lookout and be true to themselves, and, you know, be able to hold on to that opportunity, the power they hold by being able to tell those stories from the communities. And really we all cheer each other on, which is like the most amazing thing that I feel like I'm surprised that we're like, that today people are not as competitive as it used to feel like it was before. That most of the time I feel like women of color, we really do come together and support each other, mentor each other, bounce off ideas. We work together to make sure that our final product is what we want it to be for all of us, and that we're really bringing the different things to the table that ought to be there. You know, we don't want to forget something. We don't want to have huge information gaps. Yeah.
And then I think like one of the most important things is for people that don't know who, you know, we really are, to kind of say like, hey, we're kind of the same. Like, you know, even though we're different, we don't look the same or whatever, but we like the same things. We do the same work. You know, we enjoy, you know, whatever
the humanistic side, the food.
Yeah. We have those conversations all the time about kids growing up and just like little things that happen in life. And it's just like, yes.
We know what we're talking about. And then we start laughing hysterically. Yeah.
You know, I love everything that you guys are talking about right now, because it's an important conversation to have, and I enjoy that you guys are having it, and appreciate y'all both for coming on here and having this conversation with us as well. So, you know, my next question is the media landscape and how it has changed over time. I remember, you know, first of all, just in high school, you know, when I was, you know, working on the weekends at the gas station, I used to look forward to just going in there, grabbing a newspaper when I got time and reading a newspaper. Newspaper days are long gone. I feel like I don't even know if they officially are dead yet, but I know they're still being printed. But I'm sure the numbers would tell you that I don't know if it's worth printing anymore these days. But with that said, the landscape, how has it changed? And then what kind of trends do you guys kind of see in the future? Like, is it just going to be online? Like, what is it? How are the older people going to get their news if everything moves to online? Like, so what's the trends?
That's a good question. We still don't. Everything's in flux right now, truly, because of AI, because of chat. Like everything that's coming into the system. It's like there is no clear path right now, especially for radio, especially for newspapers, television. Like there is truly no clear path. Like I don't know what to say the future is, but right now, I mean, it's pretty tough. It's pretty tough, honestly. It's one of those situations where we kind of feel things are shifting and changing, less listeners, less audience, and trying to just gain and retain audiences it's been a little difficult for the station and a lot of stations across the country. So I think just once again, Gen Z's coming up and they're just like, that's just not what we're doing. So figure it out. And I just think we all have to learn how to transition to either doing more of an online YouTube podcast type of setup, or even try to find our way into the social media spaces so that way that Gen Z and the younger kids actually know what we're doing and who we are. Because I don't think that the younger generations don't care about the news stories and care about what we're doing. I just don't think they know where it is.
They want quick, fast, visual.
Yeah.
And they don't want to go out their way
to get it.
Yes.
Yeah. They don't want to click one more extra button.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like even with Instagram, like that was my big debate, was like, because I wanted to go to like one platform where Instagram and Facebook viewers can all come to. That's why I went to YouTube. But like I felt like obviously we'd have more live viewers if I stuck with Instagram or Facebook. But I still want to stick with YouTube because it's just one platform that everybody can watch or even watch later. But for sure, like I know that's the reason. Like they'll go on my story, but they're not gonna click the link. You know what I mean? So I mean, it's just one of those things where you just gotta keep pushing and keep on keeping on. But I definitely agree. Like they just want to just go, if they're already on Instagram, they just want to stick on Instagram, or on Facebook or whatever it is. They just want to stay on Facebook. They don't want to like click that extra link or just go to another app or something like that.
No, so we've been struggling with that. I mean, have you noticed any?
I was just gonna say, like the older generations, I think they're on Facebook and WhatsApp. That's where it's at.
WhatsApp.
So if you're trying to cater to them, it's like somehow you have to have it on Facebook, or like that way they can share it into their WhatsApp groups or something like that. That's how I generally see people are sharing stuff. I think for the younger generations, podcasts seem to still be very popular. So I think it's just having more podcasts, having different kind of podcasts where people can take the reins on the conversations they want to have. We don't have to wait for someone else to do it. We can do it ourselves, like you guys are doing, and creating these spaces in the community that are safe spaces for people to come together and say, no one's talking about our stories, let's talk about ourselves. Yep. And I think that's really important to see people just do it. Just take that step and do that, and not be afraid of like everything has to be perfect. Like the way we used to think in the past, everything has to be perfect before we can put out this product. But sometimes you just have to start, and you never know where that's going to take you. Something that I worked on recently was a archive. Like I didn't even know what was an archive. How do you archive? What does that even mean? It was an oral history archive, which is kind of similar to the work that I do in terms of like radio interviews. But then they get put into a space that is considered an academic space. So people who might be doing research on the community can look up. This is a archive about this community. This is what was happening. And here's a timeline. Here's some pictures to support that. So when they can refer back to things from the community. And so that's another space that our communities can also potentially look at. Like academically, we don't have to be the professors.
Right.
We don't have to be the students even. Maybe we're just putting together a product that is added to something else. There's a platform in New York called Bengalis of New York, and it started off like a podcast. They started interviewing a bunch of people that were from Bengali descent, and then now they have a blog, they have events, they have meetups. It's kind of like following what do people need. I think young people still, generally speaking, after COVID, they want to have places to come together.
Yeah.
Just even to sit and just be with community, maybe not necessarily do something, but like just be together and feel like they're not alone. I think that's something that generally speaking people have that want and that longing. And so it's like, how do you bank off of that? Not necessarily make money off of it, but how do you take that energy and do something with it?
Good, yeah.
I think most people want to be part of a bigger picture.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree, and I love that point. So definitely kind of getting with picking up with where the media is going. You know what I mean? Like, this is where it's at.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of got, like you said as well, like you kind of have to find out what this new generation likes, and you got to meet them.
They are.
Yeah.
Can't beat them. Join them.
Join them.
Yeah.
And I'm liking what they're doing. So I'm like, I'll join this. I'm down for this. I am down for all of the revolutions. I'm down for it all with Gen Z right about now. I'm not going to say all of it. I'm going to say all. But a lot of what they're saying and the way they want to see their world and their communities and just the outlook they have on the future, it's like that is the same thing that I'm wanting. And I'm going to support you all in any way possible. And that means meeting them where they are.
Work smarter, not harder.
Work smarter, not harder.
Train them young. Train them young. Start getting the kids into the spaces. Like,
Seriously, though.
I think it's because of us being parents now.
yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we want those different opportunities for our kids.
We start scooting them in early.
Yeah.
Another thing about media is everything is run right after another. Like, as soon as we get out of here, we're probably going to miss a lot of information that's already been out there in the world, right? Like, that's what it
It's a
is.
story.
You know, like, literally, there's always breaking news or something going on. I mean, even dealing with fake news, too, that's like a whole nother conversation because that's everywhere, too, now, especially like you said with AI. I think we're entering a phase of life that we never thought would ever happen. And, like, I don't think we know how powerful AI is going to be because I already see sometimes people, like, sharing false information. I look at them like, I can't believe you guys believe this stuff. Like, and that's that journalist in us, you know, like sometimes we see things like, I can't believe people share it because they don't know the negative effects of sharing false information. I think that's so dangerous. People don't know, like they take it as a joke, because people are so gullible and people believe whatever it is that they read. But go back to this, up to date, being on top of things. How do you do it as being a journalist? Like, what is your secrets, or how do you guys keep up with everything? And Nargis, I mean, we can start off with you. Like, what is your way of...
Let me know.
Yeah. You know, what is your way of keeping up with everything? I mean, is it social media? Like, what is it?
I feel like I finally have a system that is very, like, comprehensive, I guess you could say. Some of the ideas of stories I have now, I probably thought about 10 years ago and couldn't even write that story. But now I have the tools, the resources, the space, the capacity to pursue that story. Sometimes it's really just following what people are doing. I think like following accounts of people that you might think, you know, sometimes you have the sense. When you're a journalist, I think sometimes you can sense that someone is onto something or doing great work, but you need to kind of follow what are they doing for a little bit of time and keep up with that, and then have conversations with them to see kind of where they're at. You know, are they ready to talk to you? If they're not, come check in again. Hey, I'll reach out to you again in 2 months see if you're ready to talk to me after you launched your business or kind of in the skin with your business, then talk to me. Things like that. Sometimes I do like Instagram, surveys, polls, just very nonchalant. Like, what are you guys thinking about today? Or like, what is something that we should be talking about right now, but we're not? Like, just very generic, what's on your mind. Yeah. And so I really believe in people informing us of what's going on, because there's no way that one person can know everything. And like, even if you're from a specific background, I don't know everything that the Bangladeshi community is thinking about this exact moment.
And it gets exhausting because sometimes it's the same repeated conversations. So, getting more information or getting other people's opinions is really cool.
Very important. And trying to keep yourself in check, and then try to diversify even the stuff. Like, you might not necessarily agree with things that people are thinking about or talking about, but then making sure that voice is also included in some way. Like, that person might have a different viewpoint, but making sure that they have the opportunity to talk about their story too. Sometimes people, will find you. They'll find your email address and they'll say, hey, you seem like you would want to do a story about this. And then that's how we get stories. So, obviously we have cold, like press releases are sent to our emails all the time. Some of them, like Barbie, came to me and I was like, I don't know, Tia, maybe this is more your thing.
And then we laughed.
I was like, I don't know if I would be the person to write about Barbie, but maybe Tia, So executive suite, right?
Yeah, it was like an office that was like set up like Barbie's office. Like, maybe if it were something a little bit more like, newsy, but it was like an office set up like Barbie. And I was like, okay.
I don't know. But
Hey, where was that at?
I have no.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was just funny that like I got an email like that. She was laughing like, where did they make that connection with you?
Like how did this happen?
They want to see a little bit of color.
Yeah.
We went to okay, never mind.
No, what?
We went to the Barbie event that happened downtown.
In Beacon Park?
Yes.
Yeah.
And,
was it Beacon Park or was it Campus Marshes?
Campus Marshes, yeah. And then we were on the Metro, like a little snippet
Detroit
of us. I'm like,
Free Press,
they mixed it up a little bit. You know what I'm
TikTok.
saying?
Okay, okay.
I was like, oh Lord.
I see you.
Were y'all wearing pink?
Y'all wore pink?
Yeah,
We
we like
get everything. We did the
so
whole
funny.
thing. We did the
You're
whole
like,
thing.
oh, okay.
Like they had to.
Yeah.
You know?
They acted like they were ready for the camera. They were smiling.
Actually,
It was off guard.
yeah, that one was. So there was a bunch of actually people that stopped us and asked us to take videos or pictures, and I was like, I don't care. I'm already on YouTube, you know. So I'm like already smiling, and then, but that certain one that was on the Free Press, I'm like,
Of course
They did.
Yeah.
Oh, of course they did.
But they do like to mix it up.
Yeah. But sometimes people, there are some press, PR people that do follow what we do and say like, okay, this kind of generally fits into like the theme of stories you write, or maybe you can consider writing about it. So that's another way. I have like a long list of running ideas because I'm like, alhamdulillah, I'm at the point where I have too many ideas to keep up with the writing about stuff. Before I used to be on the very opposite spectrum.
I'm on that
like,
spectrum.
what do I
I'm
write
on
about?
I'm on the opposite
spectrum. So now it's like I have too many ideas and I can't do them. So I'd be like passing them out. Like, who needs?
She literally sends them to me like candy. She's sending me stories. I'm like, thank you, Nargis. Thank you. I don't even know where to go. Thank you.
But yeah, like just trying to like make sure that we're talking about nuanced conversations. And like another suggestion I would say, if you're looking for news stories, really just pay attention to what people are posting right now in the summer, especially people are doing a lot of events. So looking at Facebook events, and then there's like, monthly awareness thing. Like right now is BIPOC Mental Health Awareness Month. So how do you have that conversation in a way that's meaningful to the communities that are local? So yeah, you want to talk about it generally, but is there something specific that you can give people tips? Like I don't like to leave people with the news and information without any resources after. Those kind of stories, I like to have some sort of, here's some numbers you can call, here's some people you can look up. If you're dealing with something, here's something to follow up with, those kind of things. And then trying to have like, I do a couple of mental health stories every once in a while, trying to have people of color, of course, as the experts. That's another really important thing. Like when I'm looking for sources to interview, I'm going out of my way to make sure that I am trying to find a person of color to interview. So like sometimes it's just like funny to me. Like I think about it, like, sometimes you look at my Instagram feed, you'll see like all these hijabis and like Muslim names, but it's like, I never told you they were Muslim though in the story. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like it's just like they just happen to be Muslim, but they're like a counselor or something.
But they fit.
But they fit what I needed, and so that's how you do it subtly. And you talk about.
It's true.
You just they're an expert. You don't have to always go to that like one white guy from Arizona to like interview about that one topic. There are a lot of people that you can find, and I'm sure they're willing to talk to you about different things. So. Those kind of things, the grapevine. If I don't know somebody, then I ask people, like, do you know somebody that knows somebody? And usually the grapevine is very helpful.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I agree with literally everything she said. That's literally pretty much the same thing. Social media, just talking to people in the community. For me, even if I'm like going to the movie theater, or if I'm driving down the street, or if I'm like doing something, I'll see a story out there. I'm like, oh, wow, look at that. Oh, look, there's a new shop that I didn't know about. There's an interview there, or just little things like that. Conversations with my family, conversations with just people randomly about a topic at work, and it's like, oh, there's a story idea. So it just, like Nargis said, you get ideas from so many different places and sources and people and communities that it all just kind of jumbles and gets mixed up. So that's why I'm wondering, like, how do you source through all of it? Because I get so many things, and I'm just like, I don't know how to.
I just make a list, and then I put it to the next month if I don't get to it. And then I have to detox off of whatever I was thinking about that month. So I have to, like, get out of my system, make peace with it, and move on.
No, and even when people do know that you're on social media and you make an impact, they will come up to you and... a bunch of my friends will always be like, oh, yeah, make sure you guys talk about this. Or, hey, I know this person that would love to go on. And that's the referral. That's usually how the referrals
Exactly.
go.
Your work speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
the work
and that
comes
also
to you.
lets you know that it's good work, because you have friends and family and people that's coming up to you like, hey, I got this story. I know you would be great to report on it, or you would be great to talk to this person. And that lets you know, once again, that you're doing something that is actually meaningful, which, a lot of us just don't. I'm not going to say a lot, but we don't necessarily know the impact that we're making unless people are letting us know through that communal space. So that's one way. That's another way, I guess.
People start asking you to come to events and
Yeah.
what's going on, and asking you to present them as well. And
No, I agree for sure. I agree. I just want to make sure she had a chance to talk because I didn't want to interrupt her. Shout out to everybody here. No, honestly, this is exactly I was hoping how the show would be going. That they gave you so much information to take with you for those that are watching or will watch eventually. That you can kind of learn and kind of just get a feel of what the field is like. This is kind of what the field is like, especially for women and women of color as well. So we hope that you're learning from what they are saying. Believe it or not, we are about to enter the Motivate Me 313 minute. Yeah, go ahead.
Have you guys ever had a topic where you felt uncomfortable talking about, but you still forced yourself to do it? Or do you avoid that at all?
Yeah. I think you just have to find the professional side of you, and then you have to ask yourself, again, are you the right person to tell the story, number one? Just because the story came to you doesn't mean you have to do it. So, expressing to your editor the reservations you might have against doing the story, the pros and cons, any fears you might have about doing the story. Like, for example, one time I had a story that was brought to me that seemed obvious. It was about somebody that was also Bangladeshi, but she didn't actually have a lot in common with me, and it would have created conflict. I kind of sensed that ahead of time, although I didn't know the person personally. And I brought that up with the editor, and I said, I don't think that person would be comfortable with someone like me talking to her. Yep. Not because she knows me, but there's just something I could feel there, and I sensed that. And if the person is still okay with speaking to me and they are comfortable and they're fine, then I'm fine with it, because that's just my job at the end of the day. And so we were able to work through it. And then when we met, she was so sweet. It was it worked out so wonderfully. But I'm glad that I had that conversation ahead of time, because if I hadn't, it would have been a very awkward situation.
For sure.
For me, just anchoring a lot and just reading random news stories that are coming into your hands when you're just reading the news on air, and just, being on air and anchoring during the George Floyd protests was really, really difficult. Just hearing those stories constantly on repeat, constantly hearing even the clip of George Floyd himself, that was really, really difficult to go through, especially during the pandemic. We were all alone, and just reading those stories and hearing those stories, that was probably one of the most difficult times for me in journalism. It was really, really tough to just kind of still process those stories. And then we had a few other shootings that followed afterwards. So it was just a really heavy summer to be a news person. 2020.
2020 was rough, man. It was rough on all angles.
Yeah, it was. It was really hard.
When it was the 20th anniversary of 9/11, I feel like in the past, when I wasn't doing a lot of media stuff, I would ask myself, what do I have to contribute to this story? And I would kind of give myself a hard time. You need to say something, but it has to be something that moves the conversation forward. So this time when it was the 20th anniversary, I had the opportunity to cover the story, but what I didn't expect to happen was all this unresolved trauma that I didn't even know that I never processed it. So when I was working on the story, it just kept coming up. I have all these notes of why do I feel like this, or why am I all of a sudden feeling threatened, or why do I have to explain myself, all these things from years and years, 20 years that I didn't process any of these feelings because I felt like I couldn't talk about it. Right. And now that I can talk about it, how do I talk about it, moving the conversation forward without making it super negative and really bogged down? But I need to get the mainstream audience to know this is why it still matters, and here's how it's impacting people. So what we did for that story was I interviewed someone from this generation that never really grew up. They grew up after 9/11 happened. They didn't experience it firsthand. They might have heard about it, but they have no clue what it was about. And then I interviewed people who are in the middle, so they experienced it, but they're still young. Maybe they're activists or grew up doing something about it. And then the older gentleman that I mentioned earlier that saw before and after, and he could compare this is how our community used to be, and this is how it is now. And so I feel like I try to do this multi-generational approach. So I'm not saying okay, everyone should just think about it this one way. Yeah, it's here are different ways to look at this one thing, but generally speaking, here are the things that we're still dealing with as a community. Yeah. And you need to care, because now 20 years later, finally, Muslims can say, oh, we were traumatized. We can say that out loud. Yeah. Whereas 20 years ago, you can't even say that you're traumatized, even though you are. You had to bottle it up or minimize that.
Especially we were in middle school during that time.
Yes, yeah.
So.
Well, that was definitely great question too. Great point as well. So Ramsey, we're gonna go ahead and give a shout out to Juice Box and Hamtramck, and then we're gonna get ready for this Motivate Me 313 minute, and then final words, believe it or not. So shout out to Juice Box.
Juice Box and Hamtramck.
Juice Box in Hamtramck is a new business that we've all been waiting for. If you're looking for a place with the best smoothies, milkshakes, ice cream, crepes, cereal bars, and slushies, then Juice Box in Hamtramck is your one-stop shop. You can try things like their Biscoff or Nutella shakes, crepes, watermelon blasts, strawberry burst or mango smoothies, as well as cereal options such as Fruit Loops, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and Fruity Pebbles. They even have a comfortable outdoor patio/courtyard area that you and your friends can enjoy while trying those delicious drinks. So be sure to stop by Juice Box in Hamtramck. Location is 11647 Joseph Campo Avenue, and be ready to leave there with a big smile on your face. And if you're on the run, order your drink from their new Juice Box app, downloadable on all of your smartphone devices. All right, shout out to Juice Box, Hakim, everybody over there at Juice Box. Great juices, ice cream, smoothies. So if you're ever in the Hamtramck area, stop by Juice Box and let them know Oz Media sent you. I don't know if that's going to give you a discount or not. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to give you a discount or not, but we'll see. All right, with that said, we are now entering the Motivate Me 313 minute. I mean, Ramsey, can you give these ladies a round of applause one more time of the great work that they've been doing today? Just sharing the information about what it's like to be a woman in media and just in general about what it's like, the media field and all that other great stuff with it. So now basically is the part where, this is the clip that we pull out for social media. And we call it Motivate Me 313 minute. We try to keep it within a minute. And basically the question that I want to ask the both of you is, what advice would you give to a woman who wants to pursue a career in media? Tia, we can start with you. So what advice do you want to give, or would you give to a woman who wants to pursue a career in media?
Well, first things first, I would say that you belong here. You worked hard to be here. So if you are in the position to be in the media right now, you deserve to be here. You belong here. Now, for those who have not yet made it into it, just know that you do not have to be perfect coming in. You do not have to know everything. And it's not going to happen right away. You're going to have to work extremely hard to get anything done in this industry, especially as a woman of color. But it is worth it. I promise you, the results really do matter in the long run.
I would say that do a lot of internships and fellowships. You don't have to necessarily go to college for our field. A lot of people in our field are not journalism trained, but you can be a student and come with an open mind to learn as much as you can and build off of those multimedia skills. You will be learning something new all the time in this field. And you, like Tia said, work very hard to get there.
Look at that. Give them a round of applause.
The time? Did we do it?
Yeah, killed the time. You can tell they're women in the media.
Professionals. They're
Professionals.
Yeah.
It was like 55 seconds exactly.
Yeah.
Great job. Teamwork. Literally split it right in half
That's
too.
hitting those marks for the weather, man.
Yeah, right.
happens
That's
when
what
you
it is.
anchor.
That's what it is. So, listen, this is the part where we get the final word. But before we give our final words, I just want to say, first of all, this was season 2, episode 39 of Motivate Me 313's podcast. We were talking about women in the media field. We hope that you can listen to it later on Apple and Spotify podcasts. If you want to watch it, it'll be on YouTube under Oz Media. You can also follow us on our other socials, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram under Oz Media. I want to give a shout out again to our sponsors, B-Sid Adhesives, Balkan House, Qahwa House, Hanley International Academy, and Juice Box in Hamtramck. We appreciate all of them for their support. We appreciate Nargis and Tia for coming on here today and sharing these amazing information that they did. Final word time. Sada, we'll start off with you. What's any final words, final comments?
It was really fun to speak to other women that are kind of, in this field or whatever it may be, and just have that conversation, the back and forth and whatnot was really nice.
Abid, how about you?
Yeah, it's very inspiring to see you guys in the field, and I love the work that both of you guys are doing. Keep it up, and you guys are great. I love it.
Tia?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you all for inviting me into the space. It's a beautiful space. I've been seeing it on the podcast, but being here in person, it's like you really, really have worked really hard. So shout out to you for all the work that you've been doing with the podcast and just growing. I mean, go green.
Go white. I was gonna end it that way, but you beat me to it.
I had to, have to. And no, just for anyone who's listening or who will listen, just know that it's very important that we continue to have the support from our communities, and that we are making sure. Just let us know if there's anything that you all want us to talk about or whatever it may be. But I just want people to know that we are here for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nargis, how about you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us here. And like Tia said, we have our inboxes open. Send us emails. Let us know what is it that we're missing and what are we getting right, so we can share that with our team too. 'Cause it's important for our communities to show up for us the way that we want to show up for our communities as well. Because then we can say, like, look at the work we're doing. People are recognizing this and they appreciate it as much as we do.
And so how can people follow WDET and just kind of
I
want
don't know what my social is. Let me check really quick.
Yeah, I was going to say if you guys want to just run the socials, any way people can follow or reach out to you, like emails.
So my social media is at Nargis the Writer on across all the social media platforms. WDET, I think the best way to get to WDET is WDET.org. And on Instagram, they're at WDET Detroit.
Wow. Okay, so my at just Instagram, I guess Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's at it's Tia time 00.
I like that. That's so cute and witty.
Yeah.
Thank you. Someone gave me that name when I first started in an industry, actually, my first job. So they said, it's Tia time. And I said, that's my name from now on.
There you go.
You
There
know,
you go.
me and a little side note, my friends like to joke and say tea time with the Davids. So yeah.
That's perfect. That could
like to talk.
That could be a spinoff pod. That's all I'm saying. That could be the spinoff.
There you go. There you go.
Literally the sister.
The ideas.
Show.
Yep. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Believe it or not, we are down to next week will be our final one, season finale for season 2, and we have reached the end point. Alhamdulillah, we're glad that we were able to get there, and thank you to people like yourselves who come on and then they share very important information out for the community. So we appreciate it. Also, one more time, shout out to Ramsey. We appreciate you, Ramsey, as well. Can't forget about that. We hope that you all enjoyed the show, and we'll see you all next week, Monday. We're going to actually be going live on Monday next week for the season finale, so we hope